Hello, my name is Luz Garcia-Pennock. This is a following technique demonstration for a class at Rhombus University, where I'm obtaining my master's in counseling psychology. For this demonstration, the technique being used is trauma-informed cognitive behavioral therapy, specifically cognitive structuring, restructuring through cognitive reframing, based on the work of Aaron T. Beck. The role play features an adult client whose childhood emotional abuse continues to shape trauma-related automatic thoughts, core beliefs, and emotional reactions and present-day relationship. Through Socratic questioning and collaborative empiricism, the therapist, myself, helps the client recognize how past trauma influences current interpretations, evaluate for evidence for maladaptive beliefs, and develop more balanced, adaptive thinking. The session concludes with CBT Thought Record homework assignment to reinforce the cognitive restructuring, strengthen emotional regulation, and promote resilience. We will begin. I'm therapist Light, and the client's name is Mark.
Miss Light, nice to meet you.
Hi. Hi, Mark. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, thank you.
I'm glad you came in, Mark. Last session, we discussed some ongoing difficulties in your relationship with your wife. Would you like to continue exploring that today?
Yeah, it came up again. Every time my wife yells at me, I feel like a failure. Like I can't do anything right. Everything I try ends in arguing and yelling.
Okay. Um, Mark, if you can wait a second, I'm closing my door. Okay. Thank you so much. I hear that, Mark. When your wife yells, the thought, I'm a failure, comes up strongly for you, it appears. Let's slow down and look at this thought together using cognitive reframing. Can you recall a recent time when this happened and described what exactly went through your mind in that moment?
She yells, and I immediately think, why are you yelling at me? I can't do anything right. It just feels like when my dad used to yell at me when I was a kid. That went on for years.
I see. That connection is important. So the thought is, I'm a failure as a husband, and your wife yelling takes you back to when your dad used to yell at you. You shared during the last session that your father used to yell at you when he disapproved of you doing something what he perceived wrong. So you attribute the yelling to, in a sense, disapproval. What evidence do you see right now that supports that thought?
It feels justified because I end up yelling back sometimes and we just keep fighting.
I hear you. I understand this feels painful. On a scale from 0 to 10, how intense is the yelling compared to what you experience with your father?
Sometimes it's a 7 or 8.
That is interesting that it's a 7 or 8 out of 10, which appears to be intense. Thank you for sharing that. Let's look at the childhood experiences that seem connected. Can you describe a typical afternoon when you came home from high school? And I know from previous discussion about the dynamics with your father.
Yes, my dad would come home aggravated and start yelling for about an hour, and I always knew it was coming. Sometimes I could leave, but my senior year, I usually stayed and just took it.
What happened on the days you were able to leave the house as opposed to what you said, just taking it?
Well, then he would yell at my younger sister or brother instead.
So when you stayed and absorbed the yelling, Mark, your siblings were somewhat protected. Looking at how well your sister and brother are doing now, college, good relationships, goals. Mark, what do you make of that?
Well, they say that it wasn't as bad for them, so I guess I took the brunt of it.
Mark, one possible perspective is that by being there, you may have shielded them from some degree from the dynamics taking place, such specifically the yelling. Both things can be true, Mark. The abuse was deeply painful for you, and your presence may have had a protective effect for your siblings. How does that idea sit for you? Bringing this back to your marriage. Hold that other thought about your siblings. When your wife yells and the thought, I'm a failure, arises, how might the old experience be amplifying that thought?
It feels exactly the same. And going back to the other question that you had, how does the idea sit with me? Um, yes, I mean, I don't feel bad, and maybe it was that it shielded them to some degree, and then it had a less effect for them and the future that they held.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's the work that we're doing to see what happened from a different lens that is able to help you have and see things through positive light and cope more effectively. I wanted to talk about one dynamic. You mentioned sometimes yelling back. Where do you think that reaction comes from?
Oh, I probably learned that from my father.
That does make sense. Let's examine a recent moment. What would happen if instead of yelling back, in a recent moment, we're talking about dynamics with your spouse, with your wife. What would happen if instead of yelling back, you tried, or better yet, instead of trying, you used a calmer response? What might that look like?
I haven't even thought about it. I guess things would improve as I'd not be feeding into escalating things. Let me think about it. And I'll definitely try a calmer approach.
Thank you for being open to that and the fact that you're going to process it and think about it. I appreciate your honesty within that. It's pretty powerful. You have your autonomy, your complete agency towards radical self-acceptance, and you taking that power that you will think about it to process. So let's talk about, homework for this week, Mark. I'd like you to use a thought record, and I like the thought records that you have shared in the last couple of sessions, right? I'd like you to use a thought record when the yelling or the failure thought appears. Ask yourself these three questions. What exactly is going through my mind right now? So you're in a sense detaching from being in your head and your thoughts. You're becoming aware, right? So you're asking what exactly is going through my mind right now. Second, that thought record. What evidence supports that thought? Number three, what evidence might support a more balanced view? And before we go to the connect the dots with these three questions, Mark, when you think about your wife yelling at you, what tends to come up in your mind as a thought that that might resonate within her yelling at you? And this is an open question that I have right now for you.
Well, I have to think about it some more, and then maybe we can revisit
Yeah. Thank
next session.
thank you so much for being transparent. That's something that you are doing well. Owning your growth and being transparent, as well as moving the needle in your growth. We can review your thought records next session, going back to to what you were saying, coming back with it, and we'll continue practicing reframing the thought record to one that is more balanced and constructive. How does this plan resonate with you?
That plan sounds good. It's a great plan to help me reframe how I view some things from my past and how I'll react to my wife.
You did very well today, Mark. You were open, you shared reflective thoughts, and you were able to reframe in collaborative approach in our alliance, the reshaping of the situation with your brothers, with your siblings. Thank you for your openness. I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Light. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Okay. So we'll stop recording.